Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. It's Tuesday afternoon, and this rendition of Without a Crystal Ball is for my true crime junkies because we're going to talk about Scott Peterson and the Laci Peterson case. And if you are like me, you might get obsessive about certain cases and want to know every single thing about it. Now, most recently, there was a case of Chris Watts, which a lot of people got very invested in, but I refused to cover because my case, like the Chris Watts case, was the Scott Peterson, Laci Peterson case. So if you are, this case might not mean a whole lot to you, but those of you that are a little bit older, or at least were around in 2002, around Christmas, when Laci Peterson went missing and she was pregnant, you will remember how powerful this case was and how much it gripped and took over the media as well as the hearts of all of us as we waited on with bated breath to find Laci. So back on Christmas Eve in 2002, Scott Peterson reported that his wife Laci was missing, and she was like 7 or 8 months pregnant with their son Connor. She just went away. She just never came back, according to Scott, which didn't at all sound like Laci. Her mom, Sharon, was very outspoken that what was being said by her husband, Scott, was not in line with how Laci was. Laci wouldn't just up and disappear. There was a lot of questions about Scott right from the get-go because he was not acting like someone who had a wife that was missing. In fact, he was going about his days and his business like there was nothing going on at all. He was often interviewed outside of his house. He was rarely with emotions. He was speaking so freely about the case to the public and to the media that a lot of people started to suspect him in his involvement because he just wasn't acting like a husband that was worried about where his wife was. Laci and Scott had been married young and were expecting a child. According to all the reports, apparently Scott didn't really want to have the baby. And it all kind of flipped upside down when a woman named Amber Fry came forward and told people that she was involved in a relationship with him and that he had told her that his wife was no longer with us, like no longer on this earth. And it was her that worked with prosecutors to help them pin together a timeline of what was going on and all of the details. And in the very last weeks of Laci's life, he was involved in a relationship with Amber and not acting like he was married. So he was eventually, after a bunch of time, he was eventually apprehended in California in La Jolla. Now, this is why I got so invested in this, because at the time I was living in California and I worked in La Jolla. So this actually hit really close to home. When he was found, he had dyed his very dark brown hair to this very bleached out blonde. He was with a ton of cash. He had his passport, and they believed that he was going to go down to the border. From La Jolla to the Mexican border is about 35 to 40 minutes. So without traffic. Now he is apprehended there and arrested and then tried, and this trial was a sensational trial. Like, there was nothing like I've ever seen. Court cameras, it was all over the place, court TV. Like, I basically remember every single outlet playing this entire case out. It wasn't a very long trial at all. It was only like 9 days, and they had a lot of evidence. And the reason why they had evidence was because Laci's and Connor's bodies eventually washed up in the San Francisco Bay. And they found them, and when they found the bodies, obviously he was arrested. So they were able to tie it together because he had gone out fishing, and there was a lot of evidence, obviously. He always proclaimed that he was innocent, but there was just so much evidence that suggested otherwise. So when he was finally convicted, it was like this proverbial sigh of relief from everyone in the United States because they had so much evidence that he had done this that it was like impossible for him not to get convicted. But yet people believed that he might because his parents had hired high-price attorneys. So he eventually is convicted, and he is charged with both for the wife his wife and his unborn child, because his child would have been considered viable if she would have delivered Connor. So as a special circumstance, they were actually able to add a penalty to it where he would be put to an end by the state of California. And that was recommended by the jury, and then a judge actually sentenced him to that. So since then, he has been sitting San Quentin, the prison in San Francisco, and he has been sitting there as a condemned man. Now, he has, and his family has, been trying to spin for years that he is innocent. There has even been some conspiracies that this is all a setup. I even had some of my subscribers come to me at one point and say, Katie, you really need to cover this case because he's innocent. And I was like, no, he is absolutely 100% not innocent. He 1,000% did this, and he is exactly where he should be. Now, in my state, we don't have these kinds of penalties. If you do something like this, you go away, and you go away for life. In the state of California, there's actually a moratorium on these types of cases. And so even though he was put into that row, he was not actually ever at risk of being put to an end. In fact, they haven't done them in years in California because of it. So his appeals go all the way up to the Supreme Court in California, and they make a ruling yesterday, which has a lot of people really upset because they have decided to overturn the penalty phase of this case, meaning that his sentence of being condemned was removed from his case. So now he is no longer on the row, let's just call it. And he has at this point, what would be considered life in prison. So here's what happened. The Supreme Court in the state of California reviewed all of the evidence, and they said that there was some flaws in how they decided who was on the jury. And they say that part of it was that when they were picking jurors for the case, they specifically removed any single juror member that was like that would have been against capital punishment. And if someone was opposed to capital punishment, they were not allowed to be on the jury. And the court says that you're not allowed to disqualify someone specifically because they're against that. So the court said it's required to reverse this after determining that the court had erroneously dismissed prospective jurors who said they were opposed to capital punishment, even though the jurors gave no indication that their views would prevent them from following the law. So they weren't allowed to dismiss someone based upon that. So they also were wanting to have, not only were they asking to have it overturned, but they were also asking to have a new trial or have the convictions overturned for the actual crime. And they did not overturn that. So here's how it all plays out. He is no longer considered on the row. Now prosecutors that are in the county that he was tried in can decide to retry that phase of it. So they can do another what's called penalty phase, where they put out all their evidence, and then a new jury can decide whether or not they will condemn him or not. Or they can do they could just remand him to life with no parole. And it's not going to change the fact that he is he's still convicted, he's not overturned, but he's no longer technically on death row. So I was shocked because I was even though I knew the possibility in the state of California was that he was very unlikely to ever go in that route, it seemed like the most final and most qualified or practical solution for this. Now, again, I don't live in a state for this. I'm not typically for this sort of punishment, but what Scott did was just so egregious and so awful that was the one. It's been one of those times where I'm like, he deserves it, right? Well, at least he's still going to be in prison, but now they have to decide what they're going to do, and the prosecutors haven't said whether or not they're going to seek it a second time or if they'll just remand him to life without parole. His attorneys, though, are saying that this is what his attorneys said after the justices made the decision. They said, well, we are disappointed that such a biased jury selection process results in a reversal of only the sentence. We look forward to the court's review of the new forensic and eyewitness evidence for innocence. So they say that they have all kinds of new evidence that they're going to present, that they want a new trial. And they we're hoping that this evidence will help them reverse this sentence, the guilty verdict. Now, his family says that for a long and difficult 18 years, we have believed unwaveringly in Scott's innocence, so today's decision by the court is a big step towards justice. However, his sister actually told the Today Show that he's exactly where he needs to be, and he should stay there for the rest of his life. His parents have always been in like strict denial. Like they for sure were looking at Scott, in my opinion, as the golden boy that could do no wrong. And so they've lived in this world where they truly believe that Scott has done nothing wrong. But he always has had this sister, this half sister, that has been adamant that he did this and adamant that he stay where he's at. So his family is divided. Now, her mom, Sharon Rocha, who has always been very outspoken for Laci, she has not said a word. So she has not commented. The prosecutor has not commented. I was just like making a comment on Twitter and I said, were any of you guys rocked by this? Were any of you guys like actually shocked by this? And I didn't realize if people would actually respond, but I got quite a few responses on this, and it just goes to show that how far this case has reverberated with people. And it says, I'm all for the penalty and I think he should get it. I'm not struggling with the reversal. He's never going to get out and he will be on the row as this penalty phase moves forward. Question is, will they seek it again? And another person said he should definitely be in prison for the rest of his life. He is a danger to society. I don't necessarily disagree with overturning the DP. I wish it would happen more. Just why does it always seem to happen to the white male offenders? And another person said, I think he did it. I really do. I think he did this to his wife and son in cold blood. However, if there is a 0.1% chance that he did not do it, as he still maintains his innocence, I have to say I support this reversal. He's still going to spend the rest of his life behind bars, and maybe that's worse in many ways. And then someone responded to them and said, I agree. He's in California anyway. He's never going to be put down that, or, his life will never end that way. So if you think of it in that way, this reversal basically means nothing. So I actually kind of agree with that. Like, they don't do it anyway. I don't even know why it's still a thing in California, because they haven't done the DP in such a long time there because of the moratorium. I am surprised that they haven't even just reversed and just made it an outright ban in the whole state. There aren't that many states left in the United States that offer the DP as an option for for these types of convictions. I live in a state, again, that does not offer this, so it's never something I've ever had to ever face. We don't ever think about that when people are dealing with these types of crimes. So when you're in a state that has it, I guess it's a whole nother level of wow. So what do you think? Are you for the reversal? Are you against the reversal? Are you think he's guilty? Do you not think he's guilty? Were you as rocked by this case as I was? Were you as riveted by it and emotionally invested in it? And did this update in the case cause sort of this visceral reaction in you like it did to me? I would love to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.